Hi, everyone. I'm Sherry Lewin, and welcome to episode 6 of Book Notes. This is a series that I have started where I'm going through books on my bookshelf, revisiting some of the highlights and the takeaways that I've implemented and sharing them with you. I invite you to leave a comment or let me know if there's any books that you're interested in that maybe I haven't heard of or that I have, and we can work them into a future video. Anyway, today for episode 6, I have selected a book called Smart Tribes: How Teams Become Brilliant Together by Kristen Comaford. I don't know if you can see this on the screen. I think you can, but the words themselves are made up of lots of little people, or the letters. And I like to always mention how I came across the book. This book, I'm not really sure how it came into my possession. I was looking for another book on my bookshelf, and I saw this book. And I didn't know where it came from. And I pulled it out and I was sort of smitten by the cover. And the little saying that says, "How teams become brilliant together," made me wonder if the author was British, because a lot of my friends from England use the word brilliant, kind of like I use awesome or amazing. So I became very curious. I'm not sure how it came into my possession, but I pulled it out, looked in the inside cover. I became very drawn in, even from the introduction. What's interesting is that in the introduction of this book, she gives a great summary of what a smart tribe is, and actually the ROI on why you should invest in creating a smart tribe within your company. So I think that's a brilliant way to use your introduction for your book. So I give her kudos for that. But what I wanted to do today is go through about, what do I have? 4 major areas in the book that I had some great takeaways that I think you could implement right away. And I'm going to just try to share them in my own layman's terms. The first one that she talks about for smart tribes is that you have to work in a smart state. And we're going to get into what that is and what the components of it are. But a tribe, a smart tribe, a business is always growing and expanding. And as you grow and expand, you're going to reach what's called inflection points. And at these inflection points, sort of like that little growth curve that you have to go through, or that push through barrier to the next level, personally or in your business. But when a company or an organization reaches an inflection point, they have to analyze and usually revisit, revamp, or improve 3 things within the organization. One is people, the second is money, and the third is model. So let's talk about what those 3 are. The people are the humans that are going to carry out this new expansion. Do you need new training? As people expand in their roles and responsibilities, a lot of times they don't already have the skill set for some of the things that they will be responsible for. So people involves, how do we up level the people that we have to meet this next level that we're moving into? How do we hire new people to help fill some of the unfulfilled roles? And how do we restructure our management style or organization to meet these new needs? So that's your people, and that's going to have to be assessed at each inflection point for an organization. Secondly is your money. How much more revenue are you anticipating? Where does this revenue come from? How are we tracking the revenue? How are we tracking the expenses? And how can we tighten up our controls all around in these areas as you scale up and expand? So that's the money portion. And then the last one is the model. And the model is usually your processes that you use to um, report up the chain, down the chain, what your strategic plan is. Is there a goals and objectives to support your strategic plan? Putting those processes in place that makes it easier for you to get to that next level. Talking about where you need to be. So those are the inflection points. And so at each level, you can see there's going to be changes. There's going to be changes in people. There's going to be changes in the way the money is accounted for, or who's responsible to raise what. And then there's going to be changes in the processes or the models. And what happens when there's change is that it tends to trigger people into whatever their current or historical safety mechanisms are. Okay, so the next thing that she explained that I thought was wonderful was about the critter state versus the smart state. And first of all, what would be a smart state? Well, a company or an organization wants your individuals to operate within the smart state. This is when they're creative, they're problem solving, they're engaged, they're able to handle challenges without becoming too unstable. And they essentially have flexibility as well as strength. That's your smartest state. The critter state, if you think about that, is just your direct reactionary state. I like to think of like a little raccoon. When they get caught doing something, they get in a critter state. They're either going to try to fight, they're going to flight, or they're going to freeze. There's also fawn, but we're going to focus on those three here because that's what she mentions in the book. So in SmartTribes, she talks about how to have a smart tribe operating at its highest capacity, you need to encourage and create an atmosphere where people can operate in their smart state. And she does reference a Dr. David J. Siegel in a book called The Whole Brain Child, gives an illustration that she gives in the book, which I'm going to use my hand because I think it's really good and kind of brings home the point. Sometimes awareness is really important to understand these concepts. So if you think about this representing your brain and the thumb being the limbic system. So this is messages coming in and out to the brain. The base of the hand is your reptilian brain, which is your automated responses, and your reactionary automated, that keeps us alive. The palm of the hand is your mammalian brain, which is your safety and your security and your sense of connection. So your responses are coming in and out. And then your fingers and your fingertips are your neocortex and your frontal cortex, which is the frontal part of your brain where you can process complex problems. You can imagine your imagination. You can see the future. There's a lot of things that can happen to be innovative problem solvers and great leaders. That happens, your executive functioning happens in this part of your brain. So if you imagine that if someone's operating, they've hit a fear, a moment of fear, a present position or situation that's creating some uncertainty or fear, you can imagine the person doing what they call flipping their lid. So all of a sudden, boom, they're disconnected from their frontal cortex and their neocortex, where they have all the skills they need to make the best decisions to solve problems. And instead, you're in a feedback loop of just survival, just getting the best thing for the exact moment, not necessarily the overall situation. So you want to have the whole brain engaged and be in what you call a smart state. Smart states are good for business. So what can you do to get people into the smart states? Well, what she talks about, Ms. Comaford in SmartTribes, is there are 5 smart state accelerators. Okay, I found my notes, and her term that she uses is smart tribe accelerators. Makes sense because the name of the book is Smart Tribes. But she goes through 5 things that you really need to help accelerate your team into a smart tribe state, creating the atmosphere where people feel safe and can use their whole brain. They're not flipping their lid on a regular basis. And if they are, you can help get them back to using their whole brain again. So these are the 5, and then I'll talk a little bit about each one. 1 is focus, 2 is clarity, 3 is accountability, 4 is influence, and 5 is sustainable results, which makes sense. If you're going to make it through these inflection points, you need to be able to have focus, clarity, accountability, influence, and sustainable results. And I'm only going to go into details on just a couple of them, but the book does a great job in going through how you can create the atmosphere, the processes, the measurements for all of these various factors, or smart tribe accelerators, as she calls them. But on focus, they say that this is just the underpinning foundational skill that everyone needs to be able to have, is focus. And I find that in my own experiences working with others in a variety of teams, that this is really a challenge for people, is to stay focused. And boundaries are very important. I think that perhaps it's our phones or the technology that we have today that we're having a difficult time just carving out time to do one thing and one thing only, or to focus on one thing that's important to us. We let a lot of other things creep in as they will. She talks a little bit about that. We need to be able to focus on what exactly are we working on, and why are we working on it? Why is it important? And that helps get everyone focused. Are you here? Are you present? And can you focus on what we're trying to do? Focus is very important. She goes into a lot of detail on that. Clarity of words. Are you saying what you mean? Are you doing what you say? And are you intending behind the words that you're saying? Do your intentions match up with your words? It's a lot of nuances to clarity. And then accountability. How are we measuring this? Who is responsible? And how are we going to celebrate, either through incentives or consequences? How do we make things happen with an accountability needle? She talks about needle movers in this section, and make sure you prioritize the things that are actually going to move the needle, and you just manage the things that are kind of wasting your time. And influence. This is really important. This kind of ties back to the last book that I did a video on, and that was psychological safety. So to create influence within your team and to have the team feel safe to use their whole brain, they have to be able to have psychological safety. They need to feel like their contributions are recognized, and that the leaders on the team recognize their contributions and also understand their challenges. So that would fall under influence. And the sustainability is really about the energy management long term of what you're trying to achieve in this next level. She gives a great little chart, a template called a energy allocation chart, where you can list all the activities that you do that give you energy, all the activities that drain your energy, and then you can start seeing where you can do more of the activities that give you energy and less of the activities that drain your energy. There's always, I heard something the other day on a reel, and the gentleman was saying one man's stuff is another man's treasure. Exactly. things that are just stuff for you is where somebody else shines in their skill set. So you want to be able to balance that out within your teams. And that's a lot having to do with sustainability. Do you have the right people doing the right things that they can self-generate the energy in that position? All right. So that went through all of the 5 Smart Tribe Accelerator areas. She gives a lot of good information in each of those. So they are, again, focus, clarity, accountability, influence, and sustainable results. And then in the very end of the book, there's a great little gem dropped in, and it has to do with positive target fixation. And I've noticed that this is a challenge in a lot of organizations, and she uses a great example of what a positive target fixation looks like in action. And she uses the example of learning to surf. And wherever it was that she was learning to surf, there was a for those that surf know, near the jetties where there's a big rock formation, sometimes you can get good waves, and surfing tends to be good near jetties. So part of a beginner surfer is trying not to surf right into the rocks. You have to be able to have a level of control to move away from the jetties and towards the beach. And so her instructor, every time she made it up, would say, "Look out for the jetties. Don't hit the jetties." So what would she do? She'd surf right on into those jetties. So knowing this positive target fixation concept, because of her in her education and her business experience, she asked the instructor if he would say, "Swim to the beach, swim to the beach," instead of mentioning the J word. So after that, no problem. Her mind and her surfboard went over to the beach every time. So that is a great example of, once you've set what your targets are, be sure you're speaking your targets out loud and not speaking what you want to move away from, because people want to fixate on where they're going. So we want to be able to give a positive target for everyone to fixate on when you're setting those goals. That was a gem dropped in the very last 2 pages of the book, and I thought it was great. So I want to thank Christine Comaford for a great book. I would recommend it if you are building teams and you're moving through an inflection point. Smart Tribes: How Teams Become Brilliant Together. Well, that was episode number 6 of Book Notes. Thank you for joining me. Please leave a comment if you've read the book or you have ideas about it or want to hear more about any of these concepts. I'm happy to share more. Have a great day, everybody.